Hello, welcome to Food Safety Fridays. My name is Simon Timperley from the International Food Safety and Quality Network. Today's topic is securing management and employee buy-in for effective food safety training. And we have two presenters for you today. We have Dr. Matthew Wilson, Senior Lecturer in Food and Nutrition at University of Adelaide, and Andrew Thomson, owner of Think ST Solutions. So welcome, guys. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Simon.
Very good. Thanks, Simon.
Nice to have you with us. Where are you joining from? You know, it's the custom. We have to say where we're joining from. Where are you calling from, Andrew?
Just outside Barossa Valley wine region.
Very nice. And Matthew?
I'm in Adelaide City in South Australia.
Very
a
good.
little bit further south from Andrew here.
And I'm actually calling from a hotel room in Llandudno in North Wales. But I did make it. So welcome, everybody. Tell us where you're joining from today. Ahmed in Toronto, Mohammed, Blessy from Wisconsin, Timothy from Ontario, Wendy from Pennsylvania. All very welcome. We're going to play the video ads now and then we're back for the presentation just in a couple of minutes. Okay. Okay, I'll hand you over to Andrew and Matthew for the presentation. I'll be back for the Q&A later.
So thanks very much, Simon, and hello, everyone. So I'm up first. Dr. Matthew Wilson from the University of Adelaide. I'm a Senior Lecturer in Food Science and Technology in the School of Agriculture, Food and Wine. And my job is teaching, processing, teaching food sensory, but also teaching food quality and food safety as well. And so I'd like to welcome you to this talk and just sort of briefly introduce what we're going to be talking about today and why. So our focus today is why we think that food safety training needs a rethink. And Andrew and I have designed this webinar especially for leaders, but for other people too, across every sector of the food industry, right from prime producers to the people serving up food ready to go from paddock to plate. And we're actually hoping to sort of challenge some of the long-held beliefs around how food safety training is normally done, how we think it can be improved, and how we can sort of try to lead towards some genuine engagements within this sector to improve training outcomes, make sure that rather than having sort of box ticking exercises where we sort of ask people sort of vague questions that they might easily be able to answer, instead we can look at more nuanced and more targeted ways of training people that empowers them to do the job better and to lead to better safety outcomes, to create lasting behavioural change, which we think is the best way to change the whole culture of food safety within the sector, and therefore to lead to better food safety outcomes. And we've actually got a few different polls in our presentation today where we're asking for a bit of your input. And so our first question is, what do you think your biggest challenge is in engaging employees when they to encourage them to undertake food safety training? So if you're a leader, what is the biggest challenge to get people involved in food safety training? Or if you're maybe someone who's more maybe slightly lower down the chain, what is the biggest challenge for you to sort of to encourage you to join in these sorts of training exercises? So if you're happy to put some answers in the chat, perhaps we can sort of get a bit of a feel for what people think about this question.
Yeah, the chat just takes a few seconds to come through, but yeah, just type in the sidebar your answer to what is your biggest challenge in engaging employees in food safety training.
Thanks, Simon. And we're getting a few things here that just, they're not interested in it. They don't have the time. They don't have the incentives. Don't have management buy-in. Time is coming up. Someone says it's mandatory, so they don't have any choice. But resistance, management buy-in, and lack of time. Biggest challenge is getting the trainers to include new processes within their training. I think that's a very much something that Andrew and I are going to highlight in this talk. Time and interest, generic food safety into a very specific niche industry, absolutely. And again, that's something that we're going to be highlighting today, is just the importance of making sure that training is fit for purpose. Low morale, understanding how important it is, management buy-in is coming up time and time again. Language barriers, lack of awareness. All of those things are probably things that Andrew and I were expecting. And so hopefully today is something that's something that we'll cover off in depth. So here are a few statistics. These are statistics from Australia, from the global company Randstad Work Monitor, but this specific data is from Australia, very recent data, where they're actually talking about some differences and some challenges, difficulties and challenges that employees can have, and what the biggest challenges are. And that's something that we have to consider when we're trying to encourage them to take training and to have that buy-in, to allocate that time, and to want to engage in the training. So let's just go through some of these statistics. 83% of employees prioritize work-life balance over pay. So in many cases, the key to them is that balance for work and life, as opposed to just out there for the money. Nearly a third have left jobs due to a lack of career progression opportunities. That's something that's very relevant to what we're discussing today, because if people don't feel they have that opportunity to advance, they're perhaps going to take the job less seriously, they're going to look for other jobs. And perhaps related to that, 85% perform better when there's a sense of community at work. And so that's where, again, we think training can come in as a good way of instilling some of that sense of community. 40% would quit if employers don't offer upskilling opportunities. So again, more and more employees are beginning to expect these types of opportunities. Within the food industry, perhaps the most critical one of all would be around food safety training. And 44% have left jobs due to toxic workplace environments. So again, if employees don't feel valued, or they don't feel respected, or they just don't enjoy being at work, fair chance that they're going to quit. And so these statistics highlight the importance of creating a supportive, but also growth-oriented work environment where people think they have those opportunities and the pathways to advance. And so we can begin to integrate some of these insights into training programs to help better engage employees, to reduce the turnover of employees, and to help try to build that culture where they do feel part of the community, where it's not a toxic workplace, where they do have those upskilling opportunities and a clear progression pathway that they can see, more likely to be engaged, more likely to participate, more likely to have better outcomes. So what is the sort of the current state of play? What does the sort of the normal kind of business as usual operations look like in terms of training and learning management for employees? So often we have different sort of learning management systems which we use for food safety training. They're quite useful for managing content. They can track completion. They can let you know who's done the training, who hasn't done it. What they're less good at is actually building capability. So they can tell you who has participated, have they completed the mandatory modules. What they're much worse at telling you is, did they actually understand it? Are they taking it on board? Are they going to use that in their operations? So they're not a coach. They can't observe. And in most cases, they don't provide meaningful feedback either. So instead, to create meaningful change, to build that culture we're talking about for better food safety outcomes, we need to offer employees support. We need to be able to guide them and have meaningful opportunities to learn that are related to their actual work and their actual work environment. And for this, we need human connections. That's essential to actually make it relevant and much more likely to be successful. So who can be involved in this? QA managers, supervisors, your peers, all can play a role. And so this is much more likely to create meaningful training when we actually engage these people in designing and finding training opportunities that are relevant to them. And this is not a new concept. As far back as the sort of the 1960s, thinkers such as Malcolm Knowles, who I know Andrew is going to reference a bit later as well, recognized the needs of adult learners to have autonomy in their learning, and the fact that we need to treat people in the industry as adults, respect the fact that they learn in different ways, and tailor learning experiences to fit their needs. So I'm a university lecturer, and when I went through university, most learning was sort of what might be called the sage on the stage style, where an expert would sit at the front of the room or stand at the front of the room and talk, and we'd all take notes and expect to copy the answers down the exam. That style is being phased out in university style teaching around the world. In most cases, it's already gone, and it should be avoided in other sort of training education systems as well. We need personal connection. We need individualized and specialized approaches that better suit your actual employees. And to do this, we need to actually sort of look for a model where training isn't about a course or not about a bare minimum standard that we're expected to meet. Instead, it's about building the skills that the employees will actually need so that they can translate into what they're doing on the job. Because we want employees to be able to perform tasks confidently, whether in the kitchen, the production floor, or wherever they are in the food business. And if all the food safety training they've had is through online modules or theory-based sessions, it's unlikely they'll be able to translate all those skills successfully to their operations. Andrew and I were talking earlier around, when you learn to drive, that you can read the manual and you can learn all the theory, but until you actually get in a car and start driving yourself, you're unlikely to actually be able to translate that into to real world thinking and to see how that works for you in real life. It's exactly the same in the food industry in terms of we can learn theory. We have to be confident that we can apply that theory to make that a meaningful learning experience. And because we know that true skills come from doing, from performing tasks the right way every time. That can be with guidance at first, but over time, you should be doing that by yourself in the actual environment where the work happens. Because hands-on learning embeds the right habits, and you begin to build up a sense of ownership over the process if you're doing it in a way that you have been trained specifically for that task. So, just to again, further context, we wouldn't teach microbiology only by theory. We wouldn't teach culinary skills only online. And so why would food safety training in industry be any different from that? So here are some of the facilities that I normally teach in at the University of Adelaide, where we maintain a very strong focus on hands-on learning, because we want to be confident that our graduates emerge not only with sort of the theory concepts which they need to succeed, but also with the skills and confidence to apply these to the careers they'll actually pursue. And because we know that knowledge of food safety concepts become meaningful when you learn how this can be achieved by applying best practice in food preparation and right throughout the food supply chain as well. So why are we so keen on focusing on improving training? Well, why is this such a critical message for us? We believe it's essential to emphasize its importance in your business. Because if you're not offering your employees the chance to upskill in their food safety training and their abilities in food safety operations, do you really care about it? Can you demonstrate management buy-in if you're not giving them the chance to learn about it in a meaningful way? Because too often sort of food safety can be put in a silo within a food business. It's just another department like sales or accounts or something like that. But food safety has such a big impact that it must be in the front of mind for all food operations. And the center of all successful food businesses is a food safety culture, which governs the way things are done. And training can be an essential part of instilling this concept and this culture in all employees. So next up, we have our second poll. And here we want to ask you, what do you think the difference is between compliance-driven training and engagement-driven training? So again, I'll give the opportunity just to add your thoughts to the chat here when you're ready, please.
Yeah, so again, it'll take a few seconds to come in. Just answer your comments. What is the difference between compliance-driven training and engagement-driven training? Just entering the sidebar. Okay.
Thanks, Simon. We got the second one sticks. That's a pretty good start. Yep. Required versus desired. Yep. Engagement training actually creates motivation. Absolutely right. Teaching to a set of rules versus hands-on teaching about how it actually happens. Engagement, you want to learn. Engagement is more effective. Engagement will become habits. I think that's a really nice way of putting it. Yep. So yeah, no, thanks for participating in this as well. So what do we think? Compliance focused, just meeting the regulations, being able to pass an audit, probably not much more than that. The bare minimum that you have to do, but realistically not going any further unless you in some ways forced to do so. Whereas engagement focused, we're hoping to build long-term understanding and instill safety habits throughout a business. To do this, leaders must actively demonstrate good food safety behaviours. They can't just mandate training for people. They actually have to sort of live it and believe it as well. And to engage fully with employees requires a well thought out risk communication strategy. So not a one-size-fits-all approach, because that doesn't work, because food is such a varied industry, and it's very, very unlikely that your specific food operation is going to be exactly what might be found in a sort of a one-size-fits-all online style teaching system. Because each food business has its nuances, its processes, and its challenge, and good training should reflect that in how it is conducted. So earlier we asked you, why do we think that engagement in food safety training is low? And we believe that's because too often food safety training is just seen as a formality. So a box that we have to tick, It's not a way for us to build skills, to build capabilities, to advance our careers. Instead, it's just something that has to be done, something that's mandatory that you go along with. You do what you have to do, you get your completion certificate and you go. Because when training is generic, it's one-off, or it's not really connected with the actual work environment that you're working in, it's understandable that your engagement will drop. If you don't see it's relevant to you, you're less likely to take it seriously. And that has a knock-on effect. When the engagement is low, behavior doesn't change. And so the results aren't going to change either. And so for leaders across the food industry, this is a key challenge they have to meet. To lead to better food safety outcomes, to have stronger teams, stronger food safety culture, we need to start thinking differently about how we do the training. So less focus on generic online courses, or the most convenient option, or the lowest cost option, because too often they are just providing that theory knowledge, which isn't specific, it's not engaging, it's unlikely to be taken up. And so this brings us on to sort of the key thing that we need is trust in leadership. Too often this is the missing piece in various parts of the food industry, because for training to work, we need trust. It's a critical factor. Because if the employees don't trust their leaders, they will think they're just ticking a compliance box, or they don't have to follow the same standards, and therefore the training message won't stick. But when leaders are consistent, when they walk the talk, they show genuine interest in their teams and developing their teams and their staff, employees are likely to take that on board, to lean in and to engage more thoroughly. They ask questions and they begin to take ownership. They see what's in it for them and for the wider business. And so as a leader, your leadership style can either build trust or it can erode trust. From a food safety perspective, it's very important that we build trust by providing these relevant opportunities. And so I'll just have one more poll for now, and I'll hand over to Andrew after this. But I just want you to think about, what is the most successful food safety training that you have either organised or participated in, and just briefly why? What was it that made that training successful? And why do you think that worked particularly well? And Andrew, if you're right, I'll let you maybe look through some of these comments and lead into your presentation, part of the presentation.
Okay, Matt, thank you. So I want to look at some of the missing pieces that that I see, and it's interesting looking at the comments in our chat, and looking at the positive side of things here. You're spot on in saying that the training design is a critical thing for success, and I'll be fleshing that out in my presentation. Explain the whys, yes. Good point, Melissa. Too often that's overlooked. Training on the floor with a tour. Yeah, that's great. Had 6 groups ask each other food safety questions. Yeah, that engagement works really well, because a lot of people do learn from sharing their experiences with their peers. So yeah, good point, Andreas. Yeah, look, there's some really great comments there. Thank you for that. From my perspective of in my line of work as a consultant and also someone that's been employed in a QA food safety training role over many years, I'm just going to highlight some of the missing pieces that I see. One of the critical missing pieces is that most training strategies, they lack a clear and structured roadmap. So as Matthew mentioned before, there is value in having a learning management system, but it is limited in driving true learning, engagement and behaviour change. So what you're seeing on the screen is an infographic that I developed a few years back. And it's looking at the basic workplace learning processes or systems that you need to have in place for success. As part of my professional standing, I belong to an Australian organisation called the Australian Institute of Training and Development. And this infographic was passed over to them, some of their members to view, comment on, and as part of a validation process. So all of the positive feedback I've continued on in promoting this process. So what you're looking at is a framework that's looking at workplace culture. It's including mentoring and coaching. It also picks up on the job reinforcement. There are feedback loops. It's practical relevance, and there's a continuous improvement mindset with this approach. It goes deeper than your typical learning management system. So what we want to do is embed learning into the flow of work. And I noticed in the comments in the chat that time was an issue. Well, again, I'll discuss these points shortly. But what we want to do is we want our employees to learn through the flow of work, get them to practice, reflect, and then get feedback on how they're going in performing these new behaviours and grow. And it's not about just ticking through or clicking over modules to say that, yep, I've done this. What we also know is that new information doesn't reliably lead to a change in behaviour. It will require the practicing of new behaviours on the job. And it's about what your employees need to do rather than know what to do, or what they should know, I should say. So Matthew mentioned Malcolm Knowles. Malcolm is well known in the education field as an American academic and theorist. He introduced the concept of adult learning principles back in 1984 to create meaningful and memorable learning experiences for everyone. There is research that's been summarised in various books such as Rodiger and McDaniels and Brown, entitled Make It Stick. And these authors emphasise the importance of specific learning practices that need to be implemented for learning success. There are many other respected practitioners in this field. of learning and human development. One of the people that I follow for his insights is a gentleman by the name of Clark Quinn. And if you're interested, he's worth seeking out. So just to finish off on this slide, this framework aligns with your business goals, and it fosters an environment where continuous and learning and development are prioritised. What's in it for the employee? I think Matthew covered that off quite well earlier. So it's not really about training. It's a step towards being better at what we do and how we do it. It's ensuring that safety and safer environments, safer food are provided through skilled employees. And our employees, because they've received quality training, they're going to be more confident at work. And it's certainly life-changing. And again, some of the case studies that we'll be talking about shortly highlight this point. So we want to build real skills, and we want to ensure that through time and practice and the sequencing of that practice ensures true capability. And at the ultimate goal is everyone will be on the same page with food safety, and we produce safe food for the consumer. So strategies to improve employment and engagement and competence. To truly boost this area, we need to create the right environment where learning's active, it's valued, and it's supported through senior leaders and operational leaders, and in fact by the employees on the kitchen or production floor. So our leaders play a critical role in fostering this environment, and they can do that by demonstrating their commitment to learning. How can they do that? It's encouraging those two-way conversations with people in your kitchen or production area. It's not just about delivering information. It's about inviting questions, seeking feedback. And when this happens, we know that engagement grows and employees feel heard. We want to give people ownership of their learning and the confidence to speak up when something doesn't look right. And this must be done in a safe environment as well. So people, as I mentioned before, learn best from each other. And I think as an industry, we should be supporting this approach. And we can celebrate our wins and celebrate those who lead by example. We also need to think about the real-world indicators of competence and behaviour change in our metrics. It's not the attendance, the completion rates, or the test scores. That's meaningless, and as you've said previously, there is very little engagement. This way, we're increasing that level of engagement. So these strategies will certainly help a workplace where learning is part of the culture and it's not just an event. So some simple strategies that you can immediately implement into your workplace setting are these: making your training practical and relevant, and it reflects the actual tasks, tools, and risks that your employees deal with on a daily basis. If it doesn't feel right, there's going to be disconnection there with your employees. Simplifying the language, particularly if you've got a diverse workforce with language and literacy backgrounds. A lot of food safety language can be technical and overwhelming for some. So if we use plain, clear language, everyone understands. Our training needs to be site-specific, and too often I see organisations adopting the one-size-fits-all training approach. And to be brutally honest, it just doesn't cut it anymore. So we're wanting tailored content that's going to be specific to your processes, equipment, and layout. And as we've talked about earlier in the chat, involve your people. Great way to boost engagement. We also want feedback from the right people. Don't rely solely on trainers or managers. Talk to the people doing the job. The team leaders, the mentors, they know what's working and what's not. And the other area that I wanted to touch on is micro-learning. Micro-learning is gaining legs, serious legs, across the corporate sector as well as other service industries, and it should be on the agenda for the broader food industry. So micro-learning is really about breaking training down into small, focused, bite-sized pieces, 10, 15 minutes to up to an hour. I like short, punchy sessions myself. They can be delivered in the flow of work. It can be a short reminder before a task is to be undertaken. And it has impact. It has real impact, and it's better than the once a year refresher course that so many organisations turn to. So context matters. It must be site specific, must be related to job roles and tasks that the employees perform. Leadership driven, yeah. Leaders must be involved. They must model the good behaviours, and it's a point that Matt mentioned earlier. And they really do need to set the tone for how training and learning in the workplace is going to be delivered and accepted. Sorry, folks. Let me. Doug Powell, former professor of food safety and someone I've had a close relationship with over the years. Doug has some thoughts on messaging that is simple and effective. It's captured in this short video clip that I've put together. consulted Doug on this, and he's happy with the outcome. In fact, when I showed him the finished work, his comment was cool. If you haven't had the opportunity to look at this, do so. The key messaging will help you make improvements with your on-the-job messaging and improvements to work practices and changing those behaviours. What's going on? Now, as we head into the case studies, we have 3 case studies, and they're all very different. This first one is about the Topness Inn Hotel. It's a historic hotel near where I live, and the owners, Steph and Neil, have spent the last 3 years breathing life back into the hotel and renovating it to its past life. So they've now turning their attention to the food side of things. The bar is opening, or has opened, and now they're turning their attention to the food. And Steph has ownership of the food side of things, and she has done the regulatory online safety courses, but she felt as though that she needed more, and that there was a significant gap in her knowledge. So I am currently offering a series of personalised on-site coaching sessions. So Steph and I have discussed in 15-minute sessions what is a food safety culture and what does it mean? How do we go about supporting employee learning on the job? We've also discussed digital monitoring systems rather than paper-based documents. We've discussed proactive approaches to managing food safety. Our discussions are continuing. They're very conversational. So the transformation at this hotel is ongoing. It is an investment in people, performance, and culture. And as I continue to have my conversations with Steph, her confidence keeps on growing, and her commitment to doing the right thing is the same. Now, case study 2 was submitted by Ben Fisher in Australia, who is the technical manager for Aquatic, and we certainly appreciate Ben sending through this case study. Now, you'll have to bear with me. I tried to summarise this, but for a verbal presentation, but the information is quite exhausting, but it's an excellent example of that you can think about for your own work site. So Ben and his team at Aquatic assisted with the shelf life of a ready-to-cook product, which was packaged fish, and is packaged in modified atmosphere. Validation of the product and process had occurred roughly 2 years prior. No issues with the product meeting shelf life until recently. Issues began in the last 12 months. There was a high total plate count and increased out of spec back toe levels. So the findings through an audit that was done of the process, equipment, GMP, raw materials, incoming services, water and air, staff and plant. No changes to raw materials and any variations to any raw materials were within specification. Equipment was being cleaned to adequate levels without complete dismantling based on visual inspection and microbial swabbing. Water and air testing, both method and historical results were okay. Process had changed slightly and staff turnover had changed. Based on the initial audit, Aquatic narrowed the focus to more closely examine the staff product handling, PPE, hand washing, ingress procedures and other general GMP. Findings were that the control of staff hygiene practices had slipped considerably from original process. Staff hand washing was poor. Ingress to room control was okay. Staff GMP handling of product had changed considerably since initial process and validation was set up. A thorough review of staff hand washing and handling was undertaken. Remote viewing via cameras in-room viewing, hand and glove swabbing, speaking with staff, and review of historical data took place. The findings were that staff were significantly contributing to the increased total plate count and increased back dough levels in the room and product via poor hand washing techniques, increased handling of product and poor control of PPE, gloves being worn for hours on dirty hands and not being changed at sufficient frequency. Root causes appear to be sufficient and or box ticking training originally, with staff turnover and dilution of training over time. A holistic retraining approach was undertaken by Aquatic and the client. This involved boardroom training, on-the-floor training, initial and refresher training over a period of 3 months. Behavioural-based training coupled with increased cultural awareness of language difficulties for employees with English as second language. Staff were not just trained and signed off, but rather trained for competency and translated key points to ensure understanding. And this was assessed and refreshed where necessary for a period of 3 months to allow the new habits to embed themselves, with staff involved in a meeting to set agreed upon above the line and below the line behaviours. This was critical in buy-in and staff agreeing to the accountabilities and being part of the process rather than just being told what to do. Management added hand washing to the morning toolbox, start-up meetings for staff, and staff were encouraged to support each other in pointing out both poor and excellent hand washing and product handling techniques, with a view to bring a standard level to the site. An audit of all influencing factors was again undertaken 6 months after initial increased training was completed. Shelf life issues had been rectified. Staff were still adhering to the improved procedures. And finally, Aquatic suggested to the client that a review of all food safety training should be undertaken to move towards competency-based rather than box ticking. This saw reductions in staff turnover, occupational health and safety issues, and food safety issues. Total cost savings to the business were estimated at approximately $230,000 per annum. Improved refreshment of the training was also rolled out with a view to continuous improvement. And lastly, another case study from food service, and in this leadership role, I was working at a multi-site food service environment. I encountered a long-term workforce that was poorly skilled and resistant to change. With employees from 18 nationalities and varying language and literacy abilities, the food safety culture was weak and employee training was non-existent. An inclusive strategic training plan and a communication strategy addressed these challenges. A skilled language and literacy trainer co-delivered practical on-the-job sessions, building employees' confidence and competence. And the results were quite transformative. What we did notice was that there was an improved understanding of food safety principles. There was improved error rate and enhanced productivity. We consistently met regulatory and accreditation standards. Customer expectations were improved. Equipment upgrades and new production methods were easier to introduce, leading to performance improvements. And I want to highlight the life-changing moment for one of my employees, Maria. Maria was a middle-aged Croatian lady working as a kitchen hand and who was really struggling with her work. English was a second language. She lacked confidence, struggled to perform her tasks, relied on others for support. Through tailored training, Maria gained skills, became more independent, and improved her performance. It didn't go, her transformation extended beyond the workplace. The training that we provided led to a greater level of confidence, and Maria started driving lessons and was now driving to work rather than relying on family members to undertake this and other tasks. Her confidence grew quite remarkably. So the case study highlights a thoughtful and well-executed training program with a transition plan can drive both individual and food business growth. It demonstrates the critical role of tailored training, tailored strategies in fostering competence, improving performance, and meeting both business and employee development goals. And that's our presentation for today. And if you want to reach out to Matthew and myself, here are the contact details for both of us. And Simon will open up the questions.
Yes, got quite a few questions. Question from Lee Ling. Let's see. What type of food safety hands-on training can be done?
Anything you like, really. I think the hand washing case study is a great example of bite-sized pieces of training, of hands-on training that can be done.
Okay. Thank you. Question from Mohammed. Why does the company not conduct food safety training on time, especially small-scale QSR food manufacturing company? I don't know if Mohammed's speaking for his own company or...
It sounds like they're not committed to improving standards of food safety and looking at the bigger picture of their business and protecting the consumer and ensuring consumer gets safe food.
Okay. Question from Andrew. Any thoughts on engaging temporary staffing?
Yes. In the past, I've used temporary staff through agencies. What we did was ensure that they had an understanding of our food safety management systems and they had a good handle on the food safety tasks or food safety tasks that were related to the job tasks that they were performing on that day. They need the same level of training as permanent employees, in my eyes.
Andrew, I'll just jump in and say it's also an opportunity for your existing staff to develop some leadership skills and show some growth in actually helping to train their peers and get involved in mentoring those temporary staff members as well.
Good point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Question from Ahia. What are your thoughts on exit criteria for training? Should each training have exams and assessments?
Excellent point. I mean, I would say yes. But you want to go first, Andrew?
At first, when I entered the training education field many years ago, I was a great believer in assessing knowledge. Now, I think I've taken an approach of let's focus on what people do well and encourage that so that they gain further confidence. And then we can focus on the improvements that person needs to make rather than going down the testing of knowledge, which I've found over the years is not necessarily a reliable indicator.
So I'll just jump in there and also add that too much online testing, tools such as AI might be able to solve the answers for you. That it's just too often it's not a particularly good metric. What I was thinking is so that Andrew and I have discussed in the past that there are other metrics that we can use to assess the impact of training. Has there been a reduction in incidents? Are we seeing more reporting of minor things that might be demonstrating that people are observing more what's going on and responding to that and notifying people who might be able to help them solve those problems. So yes, I'd agree with Andrew that rather, I think we do need testing of the effectiveness of training, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're seeing whether someone can answer a few multiple choice questions at the end of a session.
Yeah. Karen asked, what folks offered as incentives that have worked for training and demonstrating competence? Any thoughts on that?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question, but I've certainly found with my clients that when when their employees and their leaders are actively involved in the training design process, it builds that level of engagement, and they're keen to get involved in the training, and they're far more engaged, and they get the desired outcomes that everyone is wanting. And some of those clients have increased their business quite significantly.
Okay, super. Question from Natalie. Do you recommend a system to access employee food safety knowledge? We do hands-on training on the production floor and ask a few questions after write it down, then return 1 to 3 weeks later. As same questions there, retain the information, but it is difficult to track with a large number of employees.
What do you think, Matt?
I think you might be sort of testing the memory of people rather than their safety knowledge if it's only a few questions, unfortunately. But I very much sympathise if it's a large number of employees. How else are you likely to be able to do that? But yes, no, Andrew, what are you thinking?
Testing knowledge is, again, not a good indicator. What about people demonstrating a particular task well, or how they wash their hands, and ensure that everyone in that particular production area understands why they need to wash their hands correctly, can demonstrate it, and then there's that shared understanding, and as mentioned before, they can identify where incorrect or correct practice is occurring, and maybe that's an incentive. You celebrate those wins when consistency happens.
Nita is asking, could you share some examples of training quizzes for food safety and GMP training? I guess you won't be able to share. There's quite a lot to that question, I guess.
Yeah, look, happy to have a chat to you, Nita, if you want to reach out to Matt or myself.
Okay. Sounds like a fair offer. Timothy, training is a critical aspect of food safety culture. What is the recommended technique in identifying the training needs and gaps from the floor or top down?
I think you sort of answered the question. Your second question there, because it's both. I think, certainly asking people on the floor what skills are needed or what training they would appreciate is a good way to go. But then again, you probably do need some of the data or some of the overview from the top to sort of also work out where failings might be occurring, and to be able to keep track of those on a more consistent basis. But yes, I think taking both approaches, both asking the people who are doing these operations every day what training they feel is required, but also assessing any incidents that are occurring or any shortcomings that are being repeated, would be the other approach as well. What do you think, Andrew?
There are a couple of approaches. One would be to look at the food law requirements and the particular standards that the business needs to meet, whether it be ISO or other standards. You can then start to identify where your training gaps are. You can also look at audit reports, go back and identify what the auditors have unearthed and where improvements can be made. They're just two of the immediate things that come to mind.
Good, sounds good. Rupinder, what training must be done for specific areas of food processing company, for example, production employees, maintenance, sanitation teams?
I would start with company standards, and again, any accreditation requirements, and then look at some of the hygiene requirements. It's probably, again, in bite-sized pieces. You certainly, with hand washing, you can demonstrate that training in a short amount of time.
Okay. Question from Weston. What is the best method to get employee input on the food safety policy?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Weston. I quite liked what happened at Boar's Head recently. Not the outbreak, but the remedial action, and through Frank Yanis, when he was the food safety advisor, he posted on LinkedIn that the whole plant closed for a day, and everyone made a pledge to improve standards of food safety. I thought that was great. They had a major food safety failing, poisoned so many across numerous states, as well as, unfortunately, they, through bad practice, killed a number of people, and the company and the employees all agreed to do things better. Maybe that's a good example to look at.
Okay. Bit of a long one from Dilek. In the workplace with many non-native English-speaking chefs and staff, we often face challenges in communication during food safety training. In-house training and simplifying the language and the subject works better than classroom training. As a training provider, how can we increase engagement and encourage personal responsibility in food safety training, where staff often see it as employer's obligation and don't feel personally responsible for food safety because it's not their own business but the employers? I find this particularly challenging during in-house training.
That's an excellent point, and I think that that is going to be a challenge in many businesses, but I think that goes back to our earlier sort of thoughts around food safety culture, around management buy-in, and ultimately it's really up to the management of those companies to demonstrate to the employees why it's important, and to sort of, as we said before, walk the talk. Get them involved in the training as well, and offer real incentives for engagement and involvement in those training sessions that actually do lead to better career outcomes, because that's going to be the most likely incentive to improve outcomes, I think.
Okay.
If the culture's not changed or improved, nothing meaningful will happen.
true. It's true. And a question from Mike. Have you done any food safety gamification training?
No.
We do elements of that in our university teaching. However, yes, it's not something that I've seen widely applied in industry in Australia, but I think to be effective, particularly for younger employees.
Okay. Right. I think we'll leave it there now. We've gone 11 minutes over, so it's great. Great presentation and lots of great questions. And we'll follow up with the recording and the slides for everybody. So if you do have further questions, you can always contact Matthew or Andrew. So that's fair enough. So yeah, thanks very much, guys. For everybody else, I'll just load your certificate in the sidebar that you can grab from there and personalise it yourself. We'll be following up. It'll be tomorrow when you receive the recording. So yeah, look for that in your inbox. So thanks very much, Andrew and Matthew. Great presentation. Cheers.
Thanks, Simon.
Okay. Thanks everybody. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye. Thank you.